Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options in Play video update. So, first off, want to thank those of you that stuck around for last night's option session. I always really enjoy the time we get every couple of weeks, just talking trading, talking options, talking the market, just talking about everything, and just great open format, bounce ideas off each other. Whatever questions you might have, or maybe just talk out ideas. Just I really always value those sessions every couple of weeks. So thanks again for those of you that stuck around. If you missed it, if you couldn't make it, that should be up, available on YouTube shortly. So definitely keep an eye out for that. All right. Um, so today's video is called "Don't Battle BIDU," but it could really this idea could really apply to just about everything when it comes to earning setups. And you guys all know I love having a game plan coming into the week. I do the earnings on the radar videos on Friday, and for me, it really helps kind of solidify some sort of strategy in my mind of how I want to handle certain names or maybe avoid certain names, right? So as Monday rolls around and things start to pick up on Monday night, Tuesday, so on and so forth, right? I already kind of know which direction I'm going, what I want to do, which names I want to focus on, right? And that's always super important. I mean, we've talked about it in the past. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. It just helps you really kind of get a strategy in place. But at the same time, things can change, right? I mean, we're in a market that's moving, 2, 3, 4, 500 points a day, and something that looked great on Friday, or maybe something that was really interesting on Friday, may have completely changed. I mean, and that's just the nature of trading, and that's the nature of this market, specifically right now. I mean, it's not always as volatile, it just is right now. So last week, I thought Baidu might be interesting, right? So during the earnings on the radar video, I thought that it could have been interesting because the setup at the time, to me, it was coming off a drubbing back in May, and it was hanging. I should go a little bit further, and it was hanging below kind of a critical long-term level of support, right? So it was right at 100, which going way back, way back, you can see it was significant. I mean, it's a significant area. The next major level underneath is not until the low 80s. Obviously, it had a ton of room higher because the thing got hit super hard. So there was space above, there was space below. Nothing happens in a vacuum, right? But at the time, looking at the options, they were pricing in about, I think at the time it was 9-ish last week, 9.5. Yesterday, those options were up above 10, so it was 10 and a quarter. So that's something to take into account right there. They're pricing at 10 and a quarter. But even more than the option pricing to me was the fact that things were kind of changing, right? So my bias was more to the downside considering how bad last quarter was, but things were just rebounding. The market was rebounding. The China tech names, right, like Baba, lifted off the low. So Weibo didn't have a particularly great number. That lifted off the low. Baba, that lifted off the low. JD lifted off the low, right? So these things were rebounding. It seemed as though kind of the China tech group as a whole, just a little bit of oversold bounces. Maybe the numbers weren't as bad as feared. Maybe there wasn't any tariff escalation. I don't know why, right? I mean, it could be any number of reasons, but they were bouncing. So pushing an idea on Baidu when it seemed that people were stepping back in and buying the sector kind of as a basket. It really didn't make any sense because I thought at the time that the potential move probably wouldn't have been too much above what the options were pricing in the first place, and then when you factor in um, the basically the fact that it seemed like they were just kind of buying things, kind of almost regardless of the news, right? Then it did really didn't seem like the setup stood anymore, and that's why a I didn't write it up as a trade idea, and b just I've kind of avoided it during the day today too. It just things changed, right? You kind of need to be a little bit fluid with these setups as you get into a week, especially when things are pretty volatile. Yesterday it was up a ton going into earnings, and the options got more expensive, and then like the China tech sector seemed like it was set for a rebound. So it really didn't make sense like pushing like the trade idea. So you got to just like recognize when the signs are out there, and just sometimes you just got to back off ideas, right? Even if it's something that you were really interested in coming into the week, if things materially change like they did with BIDU, it makes the most sense just to maybe take a step back, wait for the numbers to come out, see what they say, and then maybe reevaluate it for a possible swing trade after, right? Because when it comes to catalysts, a little bit of a change, or maybe like a little bit of an option pricing change can really make a pretty big difference when it comes to these setups. So you just really you need to be particular all the time with these names. You always want to go after like the best setups, but even more so right now, I feel like it's really 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 important to kind of like stick to your approach, right? If things change, back off, be particular with what you're doing, and just be patient because there's going to be plenty of opportunity. There's still plenty of earnings, even though we're kind of entering a little bit more quiet of a earnings stretch. Still like plenty of bigger names, some bigger potential movers. So there'll be other opportunities. You just don't want to put yourself in a bad position by kind of like chasing something, or maybe like going after a less than stellar setup, right? So going back to last night's option session, talked about boxing, and it's a pretty important concept actually. And the more I thought about it, it wasn't really something we talked about in a while. So if you have any questions about boxing options, boxing positions, um, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. If you'd like for me to do a video about that as well, totally open to doing that. So just love to hear from you. So if something you want me to discuss, just let me know. All right. Have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow.